Son of Singers on SEASIDE-FM, or should I be playing or saying on CFDR? The sound of easy listening. One of the most requested songs when CFDR first hit the airwaves, and we've been telling you that we've got Clary Flemming coming for a little chat over the phone lines, and if I haven't pressed the wrong button this time, I'm going to say good afternoon to Clary Flemming.
And a good afternoon to you, Gail. Nice to be along on an anniversary day.
A big, big day, the 50th anniversary, Clary.
I don't want to think about it.
Well, you know what? My math is terrible.
Yes.
It's horrendous. And I was saying, wow, 1972. And then I started to think about it. No, 62.
62.
Now, Clary, we've got a couple of interesting clips. And before we maybe get into the whole discussion here, and you're going to touch on some of the highlights.
Yeah.
The station, of course, originated with Arnie Patterson, Jack Cruickshank, and Vince Currie.
Right, exactly. They were the original owners.
I didn't know Vince Currie.
Vince Currie was the technical person in the mix. Arnie, of course, was Mr. Public Relations, and well known in media circles. Jack Cruickshank was the owner of Sackville Downs Raceway, and he was the financial guy, and Vince Currie was the technical guy. So it was a sort of a nice combination. They each brought what was important to the table.
And you say here in some of the notes you sent me, I was with CFDR, but it was quite a bit after that. But Cy Lynch was actually the first voice heard on air. And, thanks to J.C. Douglas of the former sister station of the old CFDR, or the middle-aged CFDR, came along there, in the 80s. He's provided a couple of clips. I'm just going to play a little bit of this one, then you and I will chat some more, okay?
Fine.
The station with a quality sound, CFDR. In a listening atmosphere overwhelmingly dominated by noise in all categories and suffering continually from inconsistency, a radio station with an all-round quality sound is no small accomplishment. This is CFDR at 790, a quality sound heard throughout the greater Dartmouth, Halifax metropolitan area. Its acceptance by an increasingly wide range of listeners provides eloquent evidence that a quality sound and devout staff are the vital, potent forces that prove good radio is bigger and better than ever before. Herein, a summary of sound. The sound of quality. The heart of CFDR.
Now, Clary, does that bring back any memories for you?
I'll tell you, Gail, I recall that so well because what we did was we put a promotional piece together. Cy did voice it. And at that time, Jerry Parsons had joined us. So this is quite a bit after the actual opening of the station. And what we did was we recorded a promotional piece to highlight the features of the station. We then committed that to a 45 RPM. Do you know what that is?
I certainly do.
Okay.
You know how old I am.
And what we did was we had those, number of them pressed, 100 or whatever, and they were sent out to potential advertisers to promote the station.
Well, and it sounded, I'm sure, a lot better. That was obviously, the sound of quality was not all the scratches. That was somebody who fortunately salvaged one of those 45s.
I have one in my possession.
Well, and you have, of course, we enjoy Cy Lynch still with us through the Chimes of Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Well, we fortunately, a number of years ago, probably 12, 13 years ago, I had the actual tapes, the analog tapes, and they were starting to look pretty bad shape, and they, of course, would disintegrate eventually or be of no use. So Kirk Swales, who was our program person, our production manager, committed all those tapes to CDs. And that's what saved the day. So when Wayne Harrod called and asked a couple of years back, is there any possibility? I said, strangely enough, we have them archived.
When you think back, now, Clary, you were hired right from the jump, right from the get-go, the very first staff?
The morning of December 5th, 1962, Cy Lynch and I had breakfast in downtown Halifax very early at an all-night cafe and made our way to the station, and we were there to sign it on at around 7 o'clock. Dick Bordeaux from Leamington, Ontario, was the first morning man, and Cy did the taped sign-on. Then Ben Dolphin did news, I did sports, and Dick Bordeaux was the morning guy, and he was around for about 6 months, then got homesick and went back home.
And then did Jerry come right at that point?
Quick story, Jerry Parsons had left, he'd been in CHNS, of course, he was a star there, went to CJCH, didn't work out all that well there, decided to get out of radio. We were looking for a morning man. At this stage, I was the station manager, had moved from sports director to take over as manager of the station in 1963. And I said, I wonder. I approached he and Margie in their living room. Jerry said, not interested, do not want to get back into radio. I spent a couple of days doing a cell job. He came with us, and the rest is history.
And indeed, I've been talking about this through the day, and I did play a little clip of Parsons during the last hour as a little tee-up, and people calling in with their memories. Of course, Margaret Teasdale, who was there for 25 years.
Yes, I remember Margaret.
Margaret, a great gal. She was there when I was there, and just listeners calling in, and one told me, one of the jokes that Parsons told on air, and of course, he was a master. He was very witty, and I found him, of course, I worked with him, as I said, back in the 80s, but I don't know if he was always the same, but a very unassuming, shy person when the mic wasn't on.
Jerry was a home person, did very little outside the home, was dedicated to his family, loved broadcasting, loved what he did, and he was probably the most natural on-air person I'd ever been associated with. What you heard on air was exactly what you heard the rest of the day. He was just laid back, and he had this incredible, unusual sense of humor. He would comment on a morning show that over at the bank, if you are looking for a loan, you can go see the loan arranger. It would just come out of him. He would think about it on air of things he was going to say, but he would spend 2 or 3 minutes in advance, then it would pop out, and a lot of times he surprised himself.
Well, when you didn't start in the beautiful Queen Square, obviously you started across, but when we were in the beautiful Queen Square with that fantastic view of the harbor, people used to get such a kick out of, because the boats the ferries would be going back and forth, and it'd be foggy, and he'd say in, and there'd be a pause, and then he'd say out, and it was all about the boat going in and out of the fog, and people, just in hysterics, sitting at stoplights. You could see them, just having a big belly laugh.
Tell you a quick story, if I may. We were doing a promotional piece up at the Holiday Inn in Dartmouth to promote the station, and we did actually a live, sort of a simulated broadcast, and we had Jerry on a stage, and he was pretending to do the morning show in front of this large gathering of potential advertisers. What happened was the chair slipped back. He actually fell backwards off the stage, and we were horrified. The entire audience went, wow, what happened? Jerry picks himself up, gets back on the stage, into his seat, and he said, I always knew I was the fall guy for this radio station.
That's how quick he was.
Yeah, he was.
But, giants of our industry, these names, yourself and Cy Lynch and Jerry and Tony Beach, and, of course, someone we just lost, the great Pat Conley.
Yeah, Pat came with us in the late, he came with us, he had gone to Chatham, Ontario, and worked at the Ontario market for a couple of years, wanted to come back home. We were looking for somebody at the time, and did bring him back. I could mention a few names, if I could, Gail, of people who might be remembered in the 60s, early 60s, before your time. John Cunningham, who, of course, was an alderman in the city. John was what I call an original CFDR staffer. Ralph Tingley, Casey Baldwin, Dale Schwartz, who came along. He joined us from the Valley Market. Ann Haley, who was our female on-air person. And one of the most interesting people I had met in broadcasting was Jessie Code, who was Peter Code, the meteorologist, his mother. And she did a program called Ship to Shore in the afternoon, which was all about Shearwater, all about the armed forces, because we were in, of course, in Dartmouth, in an armed forces community. community.
Oh, well, yes, and they were from the Hydrostone, and I kind of admired her, even though I didn't know that I'd be getting into broadcasting. I was such a sports nut, but it was unusual to see women out there in the business, and Jessie Code, we were like, wow, she's a trailblazer.
She was a fireball, I'll tell you that.
She was. Well, I don't know where she came from, but we were living, in the North End, and we North Enders, you can't push us around.
Right, exactly.
And other names down through the years, really, people that I worked with. I did have the pleasure of working with John Cunningham. And John, I was in sports. John was the program director, and John often would find himself short-staffed on the all-night show. Mm-hmm. And Gail being a night hawk and wanting to switch from sports into this side of it, the music side of it, I'd say I'm available, so I might get a call at 11:15 and say the all-night man's not coming in.
Well, that's broadcasting, isn't it?
Yep, and that was fun. I used to really enjoy. I mean, I wouldn't want it now. I'm a little older.
Yeah.
But doing the all-night show and having a live person there, that those were the days.
Well, for sure. Brian Bullock was somebody who was with us early. Vince Gallant was on air first day, and of course Cy was doing the on-air piece as well. So they were just some of the people that folks might recall from the good old days.
Well, and Arnie had, as I said, a long list because the station was. It was 1984 when it was bought out by Newcap around there.
That's right.
Yeah, because I was there as program director of the CFDR, and I went on vacation after Newcap bought it and came back, and it was top 40. Yeah. But, these things happen.
We had, what was nice, Gail, in those days, of course, and as you do, SEASIDE-FM can certainly relate to what we experienced in the 1960s. The incredibly loyal audience we had wasn't the largest, but I can tell you it was, without question, an audience with a passion for what was being broadcast on air.
You want to believe it. I wouldn't be right, not that we're going to wrap up because I have a nice, interesting sound clip of you, but wouldn't be right not to mention Jack Hutchison.
Oh, the great Jack. Jack of all trades. I'll tell you, he was just an absolute wonder man. He could do anything. I think he could fly. I mean, he was just incredible. A hard worker, so bright. Came from the Dew Line in the north. That's where he learned his trade, his technical trade, and just a tiger. Great guy. And
a lot of people were very loyal and huge fans of Tony Beach.
Tony came after myself. I moved on in 1971 and started my own company. So Tony was shortly after that. So I didn't work with Tony, know, of course, who he was and heard him on air. Mm-hmm. But he was sort of, I guess, phase 2 of CFDR.
That's right. We went through many changes. As when it first came on, it must have been quite the leap of faith for Arnie and the other partners to decide to go with an easy listening station in this market. Mind you, I guess there were only 2 AMs to compete with at the time.
Yeah, CBC was there, but it was CJCH, CH&S, and both were doing more rock and roll. Not all, but a good part of their programming day was rock and roll, appealing to a younger set, and just to be different, to be a little unique. And it was a belief there was an audience out there who still wanted to hear Doris Day. And you might remember when we signed on December 5th, of course, we're into the Christmas season, so we were playing Bing Crosby and White Christmas and all the standards. And I believe the belief was, and they did research on that, and programming experts, wherever they were, had told them this is probably a format that could win for you.
I don't think it'll ever, I don't think the need and the desire to hear good, easy listening will ever die. And I know that there are a ton of consultants who think we're daft for even saying that. Yeah. But we've gone through the whole evolution where it was, forget about it, get rid of it. And then there were these music of your life stations that started up in the United States. And then we came along, this little community station, and we're just delighted that I have queued up in a few minutes. It's going to be Doris Day and Perry Como back to back with 2 great Christmas tunes. But before we get to that and before we wrap up, Let's listen to another audio clip which features Mr. Flemming here.
Where quality is foremost, where news is first. You're tuned to radio at its best on CFDR 790.
Now the news to 12 noon, Vince Gallant reporting. The Roman Catholic world has a new pope, Paul VI.
And now Big D Sports with Clary Flemming and Danny Gallivan.
Rounding up the local sports scene firstly, and we look at tonight's harness racing card at Saxel Downs. The feature event of the evening will be a junior free-for-all pace with 6 fast starters set to go. Post time 8 o'clock for harness racing tonight at Saxel Downs. All is in readiness for the big professional boxing show at the Halifax Forum, slated for Tuesday, June 25th. The principals, Canadian middleweight champion Blair Richardson and Bob Young from Providence, Rhode Island, are expected in the city over the weekend. Danny Gallivan now joins us on CFDR Sports, and it's baseball today as he talks with Canadian-born first baseman of the New York Mets, Tim Hartnett.
Tim, you have gone from a pennant contender, Los Angeles Dodgers, to a last-place club, the New York Mets. However, I should imagine you're quite satisfied with the setup because in New York you have an opportunity to play regularly.
That's right, Danny. That's the most important thing about being in the major leagues is getting a chance to play.
Wow, Clary, just...
Memories. Danny and I used to do it quickly. We used to do a daily thing as well, in which I'd call him at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we would tape, could have been a Montreal Canadiens game the night before, or the summertime could have been baseball. And I would simply lead in, and with Danny Gallivan, all you had to do was ask one question, and you had to just wait for him to finish, and then you signed off. It's funny, we're talking about this. I was speaking at a Rotary Club in the Valley on Monday, a noon luncheon, and these are the kind of things we were discussing, and they wanted to hear about.
Well,
yeah.
Oh, listen. We could do a whole show, a couple of hours with your memories and the memories that others have of CFDR, because it had a long and illustrious history.
No question.
Well, anything you want to leave us with?
Well, just how much I enjoyed those days, the camaraderie, the incredible teamwork that made CFDR go. It was there was never one person made it happen. It was some very hardworking, dedicated, talented people that I will forever remember and be thankful for, because as manager of the station from 63 on, boy, it was a big job ahead of us, because it wasn't easy, but with the people we had around us, it happened. And it turned out well.
It sure did, and thank you to you for reminding us of this special day and sharing your memories with us.
Delighted, Gail. Nice to talk to you.
Okay, and Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Clary Flemming. Well, Clary talked about Perry Como, and here he is. Could play Doris all day, every day. Loveliest Christmas present of them all. We're not through with reminiscing, no. We've got another special guest in just a moment.
The sound of news, the sound of weather and sports, the sound of true good music, ships at sea and traffic reports, the sound of good music in your home or in your car. CFDR is Metro.
I remember that well, but somebody who remembers it even better. And by the way, thanks to J.C. Douglas, program director of Q104, the sister station back in the day of the great CFDR. Somebody who remembers that jingle. Mr. Marr.
How you doing, Gail?
My goodness.
My old pal.
My old buddy.
Listen, how do we top an act like Clary Flemming? You just don't come on after him,
Oh, no, we're happy to have you, because you and I, we were partners for a long time.
For a long time.
And people still say, well, you two should chat every now and then, and I'm always good with that, so it's great to hear from you.
We'll leave that one to the masters that's behind the
You're going off on a tangent here.
I know. Anyway, it's hard to believe it's 50 years for good old CFDR, but it is today, and You and I were youngins, Gail. I don't think you were old enough to remember coming on. And I know I was a kid. I remember my parents were quite excited. And we used to, and this is not to sound nasty, but when we went for our Sunday drives, back then everybody did Sunday driving, it seemed, we had to suffer through CFDR in the car.
Well, that was because you were a child.
We were too young to appreciate Patty Page and all this stuff. We wanted the either CJ, CH, or CHS back then. And CFDR was such a void. It filled such a void in the market that the older folks loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. They couldn't believe that somebody was playing easy listening again.
And then you, when did you join them? I joined them at the end of the 70s.
I walked in at the age of 16 years old, and I met up with Clary Flemming. Back then they were on 66 Archuloni Street. Of Leahy's Paint and Hardwood store, wasn't it? It was a paint store anyway. And Clary asked me, he says, "You're awfully young to be wanting to be in this business and this type of music." And I remember sitting in his back office and saying, "Yeah, but I have a yen to be on the air." And you know, I sort of got interested over the years just to be in radio like you did. And so he said, "Well, we'll put your name on file and let it be." So, 3 years later, I got a call that if I want to be an operator, to come on in and try it out. And that's what I did. Technical abilities, Gail. And I remember I didn't really work at 66 Archuloni Street. My teething ground was at 12 Queen Street. I think you spent some time at that location as well.
A month.
A month, okay, before we moved. But it was nice because we were lower down to the street on Alderney Drive, and you could see the ferry wharf then, and people would go by and wave to you in the picture window in the control room. It was really funny. They actually waved to your listeners.
Very hard to wave to us when we were on the 18th floor.
I couldn't believe we moved up the 18th floor of Queen Square. That was wild. Well, what a view that was.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
we have a lovely
had
view
a
here.
great time, though, overall. So many people to remember, and it's always dangerous mentioning names, you know. But I remember some of our colleagues, J. David Tramley, Keith Wells,
Bob McKay,
the late Bob McKay. There was
Leo McIsaac,
Bruce Appleby, Leo McIsaac, Cameron Allen. Cameron's still around.
Yeah, and you know,
oh my goodness, there's
Clary,
John Cunningham. Clary mentioned him. Yeah. I just saw John at Pat's service the other day, and John's looking great. He really is.
Clary Stubbard,
Clary James used to call him. We had Jim Drummond, Scott St. James.
Oh, many. And
you hired a lot of people. When you became program director in, 82 was it?
Well, I became sports director around then, and then probably not too long, a year later, I was program director, music director, and I did Windows every second week.
I remember, we'll tell our listeners this one because it was funny and we can relate to it. I'm, of course, you know me in sports. I know a little bit, but not a whole lot. And you decided when you were program director to snatch me away from Sandy Hutton in the news department because I was basically doing news and traffic to do Sunday mornings. Remember that?
Yeah.
7 to noon hour it was. And in the middle of it, we had a sportscast that went from 10:05 to 10:15. And it was all the sports that ever was the sports. And Kevin Reed, remember Kevin?
Kevin.
He did it first, and then when he left, you insisted that I did it.
Well, Kevin, it was Kevin for a long time, right up until recent times, was the news director down in New Glasgow.
Yes,
so you know, there are many people, but before I let you go, and as much as I'd love to chat,
we
I know
can go all day with this.
They want to hear a little bit more music before I toddle on home. Any one special memory? I mean, Super Snooper must have been right up there.
Oh my goodness! The morning that we went on the air was a technical error with how this happened, and I was part of the news department with Sandy Hutton, the news director. And traffic was always taped because Jerry Parsons at the time, he didn't want anybody live in the control room with him. He didn't go into the room when Jerry was on the air. That was the way it was. Remember those days? Anyway, he said, "This is not the men's washroom. It's show respect to the announcer on the air." And so you did. So that one particular morning, the tape machine wouldn't work at 20 to 9 when I was supposed to record the traffic for Wood Motors Ford. And Sandy says, "Well, you'll have to do it live. That's all there is to it." So I said, "Oh my goodness, going on the air live with Jerry." So we did, and at the end of it, I said, I was sort of looking at my notes, and I slipped up and I said, "Wise Road is receding for the morning." And Jerry said, "Yeah, like you're here, Mr. Marr." So that was it. He talked to me on the air, he broke the ice, and Arnie Patterson was driving to work. And he said, "You guys have got to keep that up." It happened totally by accident. I wasn't supposed to be talking to Jerry, and he wasn't talking to me. But then Arnie decreed that was going to happen all the time. So that's how that transpired, and we had a lovely time. I used to look forward to getting up in the morning and see what foolishness and craziness we were going to get into next. Because we get into all kinds of things.
You were great partners, and I had fun when you used to be on with me on the Super Snooper.
Yeah, and we tortured you too.
No, we
had fun. It was all fun.
Well, listen, I'm glad that you popped in here today, and maybe in the new year we'll have another chance to chat.
Revisit some of the visits we used
we
to
can
do.
always have a chance to chat periodically, because I've got to find out what's going on.
I would like to say thank you to Wayne here for allowing us to do this today, and also to J.C. Douglas, the operations manager for Q104 and Cool 90.
Never mind.
What was it? Cool FM. Anyway,
we'll just talk about
JC and Jerry, or JC and Wayne, are very instrumental in this, and I want to thank them both for allowing this to happen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Marr, and Merry Christmas, darling.
Merry Christmas, darling, to you too.
And here's a song. It's Grandpa, Tell Me About the Good Old Days.
Love that song.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye for now, Gail.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We're talking about the good old days. The Judds and Grandpa, Tell Me About the Good Old Days. Just before I leave, I might have one more little moment with someone reminiscing about his father, in fact, in CFDR. But right now, we've got to check weather after these messages.
Customer service 04895, online at universalproperties.ca.
Well, I see Matt Mabey in the newsroom getting things ready for the rolling home. It's so funny to talk about Matt Mabey, because even I didn't start at CFDR. I started in sports at CHNS and CHFX, and the guy who was the morning man back then opposite CFDR's Jerry Parsons was Don Mabey. We called him Mabey in the morning. So we have his son here as a student, and he's going to be on the Rolling Home Show doing news. And speaking of sons, I should have the son, Michael, the son of Cy Lynch, on the line.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. I was listening to the program, and I listen to your station all the time, and when I heard my dad's voice come on there, it was great, and I just wanted to call you, and hearing Clary's voice and everyone talking about the old days at CFDR, it was great. I love that kind of music myself.
Well, that's great. And you didn't take up the business, huh?
No, I never had my father's voice. He had a fantastic voice, but I always used to go down, when I had the chance, to go down to the station with him at nighttime, and I go in the library, and I'd be able to play any record I wanted to while he was in the control room broadcasting.
Well, Michael, I'm glad we were. I'd love to spend a little more time with you, but the clock on the wall is just racing. This hour has just flown by. But I'm glad that we were able to share a few memories, especially as we head into that special time of the year where memories are so important at Christmas.
Yeah, so I know I'm looking forward to it. And once again, imagine you having the Chimes of Christmas on, and it'll be great to hear my dad again.
Well, thank you for calling us, Michael, and all the best.
Thank you, and have a Merry Christmas.
You too, Merry Christmas.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that is the son of Cy Lynch. Alrighty, let's check weather. As I said, time's just flying along.